Now I have one of my own poaching stories. It concerns the birdman of the River Forth, is the title of it. And his name, I shall say, is Brian Bars, the birdman of the River Forth. He was a dab hand. Brian was a dab hand at every bird sound and call that you could think of in the bird encyclopedia. You couldn't tell him from the real thing. A good friend. He was a poacher, but a good friend. Just the same. We respected each other. He respected me and I respected him. But boy, could he put out a bird call or a bird sound that you would never know from the real thing. Anyway, he used to poach the lower end of the River Forth estuary. Occasionally we would catch him, but not very, very much. He's such a good poacher. As you're about to hear, down to his bird calls. Yeah. So this night we were out and we knew that he was about as well. It was a dark night, but the moon was out, so we got some light from the moon. When the clouds passed over, it was like somebody switching on and off a lamp. And the moon was so big, so when it did come out from the clouds, it lit up like a neon light the whole landscape. We could see the trees, we could see the river, we could see the moon shining off the river, glinting away. All the ditches were visible. Otherwise, we'd trip into them. But yeah, so I jumped the fence with another couple of bailiffs because we knew he was in this area of the river. And because we caught sight of him earlier on, so we staked the area out and he just disappeared into the undergrowth. But yeah, so I jumped the gate, the wooden gate. Cows were at the back of us. Cows always follow you in the night. I still don't know to this day if they can see or they can just hear us, but they follow us slowly. You could hear the trampling of the cows' feet amongst the wet grass and the suction when they're bringing their feet up from the mud. But yeah, anybody that's out at night and they hear rustling or a lot of movement, it's probably the cattle or a old cow following you. It gives people many a fright. But anyway, trotting along this field, and there was fairly high grass, so you had to do high steps so that you wouldn't trip over the big tufts of grass. So I was plopping along, lifting my feet, anticipating a tuft of grass so that I wouldn't trip. Occasionally you would trip, but you would catch yourself before you fell. The moon was coming out, going in, going out, going in, so I could see just occasionally where the tufts of grass were. And all of a sudden I heard this owl. Toot-toot, toot-toot. Owl was hooting away and I thought, this is nice, an owl. So me, being naive, I just thought, well, if the owl's about here, there's nobody been about rustling or netting the river, poaching the river, because any commotion that would frighten off this tawny owl. So I'm clumping away, lifting my feet, on my way. See the other guy's shadows in the distance, other bailiffs with the moonlight. And we get to the river's edge, and we look up and down, moon comes out, we could see it's all clear. No cords of the net bobbing up and down. Nothing to say there was anybody about. So, we just took it down basically to, he must be either down the river or upstream of the river. So we carried on upstream, and needless to say, it became a blank night for us. But still, it was a beautiful night with the moonlight and whatever. But we just put it down to one of those days where the poacher got away and we were unsuccessful. Anyway, on the river, daylight, we were doing our usual patrols. And lo and behold, Brian comes walking along, whistling his birds like a robin or a blackbird. He used to vary them. Sometimes he'd mix them so that you would never know if it was the real thing or not. So, and you could see his mouth hardly moving. So he gets to me and says, "Hello boys, any luck?" We said, "No. How was the other night? We knew you were out, but just couldn't place where you were." And he says, "Oh, I was out, okay, I had a good night, yeah." He says, "By the way," he says, "you've got some lovely boots there." So I looked down at my boots now. I see that. I said, "Yeah, they're good, they're black, they're military style boots." He says, "Yeah, they're good for stepping over as well, aren't they?" And I'm like, yeah, it was good on the falls, when we were up at the falls. I says, "They've got good grip, so they're good for stepping on, yeah." He says, "No, for stepping over people." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "The other night," he says, "you hear an owl?" And I said, "Yeah, we heard the owl. Beautiful. We have loads of owls on the river, so yeah." He says, "That night you were out," he says, "I was lying low on the grass," he says, "and I heard yous coming, so I lay down on the grass, the long grass, and I started hooting away like an owl, like an old owl. And lo and behold, I could hear your footsteps coming closer and closer. And I was on my back, staring up at the moon, and all I could see was a big size 10 boot going over the top of me and thumping down." He says, "You stepped over me." He says, "I was lying in the grass, hooting away." And then he passed us by, chuckling away and laughing like a hee-haw. And we just stood there, and I shook my head. I says, "That we should have known when we heard an owl. Next time, I'll be prepared." That was a good story, wasn't it? That's a true story, by the way. So, yeah, I'll share another story with you one day. Similar stories to come, but this one's going in my book. It's one of my favourites.